What do you think a stronger euro is going to mean for the ECB? Is it going to react? It's reacted in the past when we've got to these kinds of levels.
Well, language is certainly going to change. 121 is that soft line in the sand mentioned in the March star forecasts. Now that it's been breached, just on a mathematical basis, this means that euro from here on, it's going to start to generate disinflationary headwinds for inflation, for prices, and that's something that the ECB will start to counter.
So how do they do that?
Well, rhetoric, that's the first thing that they started off with. Although I must say, it's not helpful on the day, albeit this was before the non-farm payrolls numbers. You actually start to talk up a tapering or rather a slowdown in the pace of purchases. So I think talk like that is going to be dismissed very, very quickly by executive board members. You're going to hear them talk about keeping the current pace and making sure that financial conditions don't tighten. But the saving grace is, like the US, there are investment programs up on stream in Europe right now, so they're still quite favorable for reflation. 121 tolerable, but again, the euro is on watch.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised. There was a second story I read this morning talking about the fact that we did have the Latvian central bank governor talking about this taper, watching financial conditions. Can I assume that the ECB won't even get anywhere near a taper until the Fed's is well underway?
Well, the other interesting thing about today's comments was that the suggestion that the full envelope was not going to be utilized. I think that's totally out of the question. Not even Australia or the UK have talked about starting to scale down aggressively and not hitting prior targets. If you look at Canada, sure, they were sort of in that camp, but only talking about a slowdown as well. So absolutely, the Eurozone, the ECB is not in that position anytime in the near future. What they do have right now is an investment plan. They need governments to step up, and hopefully vaccinations, jabs in people's arms, that's going to help reflation as well.
But Geoff, this isn't the first time we heard this from the ECB. I mean, the idea that they're going to scale back PEP, but then maybe put more force into their traditional asset purchase program or look at other tools is something that I think we've heard. Why are we even talking about this? Like, it just shows how disjointed the ECB is. What's my takeaway?
Well, I think like the Fed over the past a week or two, you always want to inject a bit of debate into monetary policy. You want some two-way flow, like we like to see two-way flow in markets, right? And then see what the reaction is. So clearly this has had a reaction. But again, is it appropriate or not? That is the question here. Maybe a bit like the US, you want to avoid a dual stimulus whereby you have a strong fiscal boost and a fiscal boost at the fiscal boost and monetary boost at the same time. So maybe inject a bit of debate into that. But again, I don't think the ECB is in any mood to move aggressively on quantitative side anytime in the near future.
Geoff, this is going to sound maybe counterintuitive, but if the ECB were to taper, would that be euro negative? One of the things that's happening at the moment, and to a certain extent, actually, I think ECB policy is moving this direction as well, is looking at the premium that European bonds trade at. And bonds in particular trade at a significant premium to model right now. And if you look at the relationship with treasuries as well, you can see that very clearly. As a result of which Europe is attracting flows, and we're starting to see that into equities as well. If you were to see them taking their foot off the gas when it comes to bond buying, would that actually be euro negative when sort of logically you would think it would be euro positive?
Initially, I don't think it's going to be euro negative. And there are two reasons here. Firstly, real rates matter. If the market is going to react through real rates, then that's going to help the European real rate story. So it's going to be supportive for the euro. Secondly, OK, let's talk about levels here. If, let's say, euro goes higher, we get to 123, 124. My rule of thumb is 4 or 5 bigger figures either way of their anchoring conditions. I think that's acceptable. Sure, the rhetoric will be stepped up, but unless we have a very, very fast surge by June, for example, to 125, I think the ECB will just about be okay with that. And finally, when it comes to equity investments, a very popular trade before the pandemic, you own European equities, but you're worried about the FX earnings translation. You actually go into that hedge, you get a little bit of a yield pickup, but especially for dollar investors, so that's acceptable as well. But again, if we get to say 125, 126 within this quarter, then certainly there's going to be a much stronger pushback.